morning and welcome to another edition of Math and Silly Hats, where every day is April Fool's Day.
I'm just teaching fools some basic rules.
Today we're going to be looking at finding the slope and y-intercept of a line given its equation. Now ideally, that equation will be in the form slope-intercept, where, as the name might imply, we find our slope first and then our y-intercept. Here we have y equals mx plus b. Now, if you remember from our corny rap, when y equals mx plus b, b is the y-intercept you'll see, m is the slope, rise over run, don't wait until we stop because the day will never come. Sometimes, unfortunately, it isn't in this form though. So generally, our strategy here is going to be, when we're given an equation, the first thing we want to do is get it into y equals mx plus b form. That means using algebra to get all the y's to the left side, all the x's, their coefficients, and the constants to the right side. Once we have that, we should be able to find our slope. It's just going to be the coefficient of x, and our y-intercept. It'll just be the constant on the end of the equation here. Now, unfortunately, they're going to throw us a few curveballs. We'll have special cases. If we don't have a coefficient in front of x, well, m must be 1 because, well, when you have 1 times something, it's just that thing. So what's really happened here is the slope is camouflaged. Okay, it's just a coefficient of 1 doesn't need to be shown, it's implied. Now, if you don't have any x whatsoever, m must be 0, because when we multiply something by 0, the thing goes away. In this case, because the slope multiplies the x variable, we had to multiply that x variable by 0 to get it to go away. So if there's no x, the slope is 0. If there's no y, if we just have 0 equals mx plus b, well, where did the y go? This is a special case because we have a vertical line and the slope is undefined. You might see an equation like this look like x equals 5. And that would just be a vertical line at x equals 5. For the b's, if we don't have a b, well, b must just be 0. So if y equals x, what's the b? It'll be 0, because 0 plus anything is the same as that thing by itself. Let's look at a few examples. Here we're asked to find the slope and the y-intercept of this line, y equals x plus 2. So this is one of our special cases already where we don't see an m. Let's go over to the board for this. So our equation was given as y equals x plus 2. Well, we've already got it in slope-intercept form. We've got all the y's over here, all the x's over here, as well as the constants. But I don't see my slope. I should have a coefficient in front of x. Look back at our special cases. We'll notice that if we don't have a coefficient, well, slope just must be 1, because x is the same as 1 times x. The identity property of multiplication says if we multiply anything by 1, we have that same thing. And let me color code my b as well, since the y-intercept is just going to be our coefficient after that plus sign. So here we have our m, our slope, as 1, and b, our y-intercept, as 2. We'll go ahead and enter that into ALEKS. Our y-intercept was 2. Our slope was 1. Excellent. Now here they've given us a very different problem because we don't see any x here whatsoever. So again, let's go back over to the board to work on this. Now here we were just given y equals negative 2/3. Y equals negative 2/3. Well, I've got all the y's on the left. I don't have any x's anywhere. And I have all my constants on the right. So this is another one of those special cases. Okay, so we don't see an x here. So that must mean our slope was 0 because we had to multiply 0 by our x to get it to go away. So let's rewrite this. Y equals, well, to get that x to go away, we had to multiply it by 0. So we actually have 0 x's You might be tempted to write minus 2/3 here, but I'm going to keep my plus sign here because I want to make sure that I get that negative sign in the right place. Because the standard form is always going to have mx plus and then whatever our y-intercept is. So we'd have to add a negative 2/3 to this to get negative 2/3. Let's put negative 2/3 in red to remind us that our slope, our m, is 0, and our y-intercept, our b, is negative 2/3. So because we didn't have an x here, we won't have a slope, it'll be 0. But our y-intercept was negative 2/3. Negative 2/3. And our slope here, again, had to be 0. We had to multiply by 0 to get that x to go away. Excellent. Now we have a more conventional question over here, but we don't quite have it in y equals mx plus b form. So we're going to have to still work on this one just a little bit before we hit that submit button. Now here we were given y equals negative 6 minus 2x. The problem is if we look back to our slope-intercept form, we want y equals mx plus b. Here our x's are in the wrong place. That's okay because addition associates. We can move these two terms around as long as we preserve their signs. So let's put a plus sign in the middle of there just to make sure that we understand why we're doing what we're doing. Y equals negative 6. Instead of subtracting a positive, I can always add a negative just to show that we're going to use addition's property of association. We're going to use this plus anyway because we want to be plus our y-intercept. Now let's move these two terms around. That works because, for example, 2 plus 3 is the same thing as 3 plus 2. Even with negatives, negative 5 plus negative 2 would be the same thing as negative 2 plus negative 5. So let's reorder these terms. Y equals, and I'm going to color code as I go, my coefficient of x should be blue for my slope. Negative 2x, and here's another good reason to have that plus in here. We want to make sure we include that negative sign in our b. So our standard form should always be mx plus whatever our b is. Here, negative 6. So now that we've written this in slope-intercept form, we can clearly see the slope, the m, will be negative 2, and the y-intercept, the b, will be negative 6. So here we did have to reorder our terms just to more clearly see that the coefficient of x is going to be our slope, and our constant, which will be at the end in slope-intercept form, will be our b, our y-intercept. So our slope, our m here, was negative 2. And our y-intercept, our b, was negative 6. I really do hope that organizing our work was a good example of how you can benefit from either color coding to make sure that you have the right answers in the right places, or at least organizing your work in a similar manner so you can see whether you've got y equals mx plus b, b is the y-intercept you'll see, m is the slope, rise over run. Don't wait until we stop because the day will never come. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye!